Steve, it's Jamie. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Jamie.
Thank you. And I'd just like to compliment you on the fantastic channel I've been following for a while now. I don't know where all your knowledge comes from. It's pretty remarkable, I'd say.
Well, yeah, I do a lot of research, and I tell you, the people that comment on the channel are just fantastically knowledgeable.
Right.
So I've learned a tremendous amount.
Okay.
And I've gotten a lot of good record recommendations too.
Excellent.
Well, the record collection keeps growing because I get so many good recommendations from people on you.
No, that's excellent. And so can I ask how old you are and your history?
I am 63.
63. Okay. So when did you first start, noticing the Beach Boys and becoming a fan, and the history of that?
1974 is when I started my current record collection. So this spring will be 50 years of building my record collection. Before that, when I was a kid, I had Monkees albums, and then a little later on, I had Partridge Family and some things like that. But those all got trashed. So my real collection started in 74, which coincidentally was the year of Endless Summer.
Yep. Sure.
This was probably the 10th or 12th album that I bought for my collection.
Lovely.
And, it was brand new. They used to advertise it late at night on television.
Yeah.
And, so I thought, everybody was saying, you got to have some Beach Boys in your record collection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I picked that up. That served me for quite a few years. I wasn't a real serious fan. When I was in high school, I had a couple of friends, one of whom really liked jazz. He was a musician, really into jazz. I was really into rock and roll and, what was current on FM, rock radio.
Right.
And the third friend only liked cars. He could give a damn about music. And the only album we could agree on was the Little Deuce Coupe album. So I listened to this album constantly from the time I was about 16 to 18.
Right.
So that was sort of my second. This is one of those where as soon as one song ends, you anticipate the next song starting because I've heard it so many times.
Sure.
But then where I got really seriously interested, in the winter of 1979, 1980, I went to Phoenix, Arizona. And I picked up, had time on my hands, and I picked up this Byron Preiss biography.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah, I've got that too.
And I'm sure was, it was at some bargain bin at the mall for $3. And this really is what got me started.
Okay.
Prior to that, I had people in record stores say to me, you ought to check out that later Beach Boys stuff. They did some really great stuff in the 60s and early 70s. Record store guys were always telling me you should check this out. Okay. But I never really did until I read that book. And then in 1980, in very short order, I bought all the releases, all the albums.
Super.
Which has kind of colored I'm realizing now as I'm doing the channel, kind of colored my perception, because I was going from, I'd listen to Surf's Up, and then I listened to the MIU album, and then I listened to Shutdown Volume 2, all sort of back to back, just as they struck on a whim. So everything came to me like boom, all at once in 1980.
Okay.
So then the next, just to carry out with my little chronology, I moved to Los Angeles in the summer of 1985. And once again, I had no money and a lot of time on my hands. And the money that I had, I spent on David Leaf's updated 1985 edition of Beach Boys and the California Myth. Yeah. And again, this really motivated me to learn more about the band.
Right.
And that same year, on VHS, of course, the Malcolm Leo documentary came out. And by that time, I was sold. Of course, I'd been following him pretty close between 80 and 85. I started going to concerts. First Beach Boy concert I went to was in 80.
Okay.
Started picking up all the releases that I could find. I got this when it came out in early 82.
Sure, yeah, I know.
Let me know what I needed to track down and what was out there, and gave me a little bit of history and told me a little bit about Smile, which the Byron Preiss book did as well.
Yeah.
And picked that up when it came out on bootleg in 83, I think was the first time.
Right.
So anyway, so it kind of went from there.
Well, that
And it
80
came
concert, with the 80 concert, were Brian and Dennis both, well, Dennis, I guess, was there. Was Brian there as well? Do you remember?
The 80 concert, I believe Brian was not there. It was the 81 concert.
Okay.
It was not where both Brian and Dennis were there,
Okay.
and neither one of them should have been there.
Right.
We happened to have, and this was another really formative thing in making me interested in the group. We happened to get second row seats. My friend just happened to stop in and ask about Beach Boy tickets, and somehow he was able to score these second row seats. So we were sitting right next to Brian's piano.
Wow.
And this was at the time when he was at like his physical low ebb. He was over 300 pounds. He couldn't even really wear normal clothing. And he clearly hadn't washed. He didn't want to be there, and you can't blame him. And at the beginning of the concert, the rest of the band kind of cajole, hey, Brian, Brian Wilson, people are applauding for you. And they would cue him to sing. And on some occasions, he'd just be smoking a cigarette.
Wow.
Other occasions, he'd sing the wrong line. At one point, he belched into the microphone really loudly, and they just shut him off, which I think is what he wanted. He wanted them to shut him off so he could sit there and smoke. And when we were close enough to see that, they're doing God Only Knows, and he's playing Surfer Girl on the piano, but he's shut off so nobody can hear it. And from very far back, you couldn't tell, but we were close enough to see the looks going around, the various comments off mic. And Dennis, as we much later found out, there was a restraining order at the time that Dennis was not supposed to be at a Beach Boy concert, but he showed up anyway.
Okay.
And he was just on and off the stage at random, knocking over microphones, just thinking he was hilarious, trying to destroy the program. At one point during this, I'm making this into a long story, but it's Bruce was doing his spotlight number. Every year, Bruce would do either
Disney Girls,
I Write the Songs, or Disney Girls.
Yeah.
And everybody else would leave the stage, and he'd have his little spotlight number, very, somber. And I don't remember which of those two songs he was doing, but he was doing one of them.
Right.
And in the middle of it, Dennis, just in the middle of it, came running out on stage and dove onto the top of the piano and slid across so that he was face to face with Bruce. And Bruce went, Dennis Wilson, ladies and gentlemen.
Well done, Bruce.
Here, what he said off mic was, get the F off the stage, you effing a-hole.
Yeah.
Which he didn't abbreviate it like I'm abbreviating it for YouTube. And you couldn't blame him.
No, sure.
And so we came away from that concert just really sad about the state Dennis and Brian were in, and really admiring the fact that if you were very far back, they still made it look like a fun concert, that Carl and, Mike, Al, Bruce, and the band really held it together. But we were just in, and we also thought, well, that's the last we'll ever see of Brian Wilson. I mean, he can't live another a year from now. There won't be a Brian Wilson.
Yeah, exactly.
And we were so sad. Yeah. And last summer I saw him 41 years later at that same venue. So
wow, incredible.
Very sad about what happened with Dennis, but miraculous to see Brian 41 years later on stage.
Yeah, and he's still doing stuff, I guess. I mean, his concerts are, they're a little bit more subdued in terms of his input, I guess, but yeah, but that's, he's an old guy with problems. What can you say?
Yeah.
And I'll give you a very, very quick précis of what happened to me. My brother was into the Beatles. He was 4 years older than me. He loved the Beatles. He liked a lot of the UK bands like, the Kinks and Manfred Mann and the Searchers and Dave Clark 5, and he liked Tamla Motown a bit later. The Hollies were a band that he and I sort of, shared admiration for, and the Beatles, of course. He didn't have an album collection much. He was buying singles a lot of the time. And a friend of mine at first, I suppose I was about 11 or 12, went to one of his little parties, and he was playing the Best of the Beach Boys Volume 1. That's the UK edition, not the US one, slightly different. I thought, I love this. This is just wow. So I went and got one, and I just wore it out. I played it so much. It was just phenomenal. And I remember actually taking it there was a school music thing where we were asked to bring along an album we liked. So I brought my Best of the Beach Boys Volume 1. And it was people were starting to get into slightly more heavy pop and 60s pop. And they said, well, that's surfing stuff. And it all sounds the same. And, you know, Surfing USA, Surfing, they're the same, but with different words. So it didn't go down great. And I went, oh, well, actually, I disagree with that, you know, but never mind. So I just went out and I think I got Best of the Beach Boys Volume 2, which again, the UK version is different to the US version. And then that progressed to Volume 3. I wore them all out. Then I got the cheap Music for Pleasure. I think I got it All Summer Long, which is like an MFP version of the album, but in a cheap, you know, cheap sort of a cheap label. I think they were about 70 pence, so less than £1. Less than £1. The actual better albums were about £1, I guess, or something like that. The great thing was my father, he loved classical music, and he'd got a really good old, you know, an old 60s hi-fi. He'd got Wharfdale speakers and, you know, a good amp, and he loved his Beethoven and Mozart and things. So putting some of the Beach Boys, I remember particularly Sunflower, when I first got Sunflower, I'm jumping a bit, I just thought, this is just truly phenomenal. The quality of sound and the production was first class. It was absolutely brilliant. And you know, I guess I was blessed to have a good system to play albums on. And I guess it wasn't until probably about 1970 that my sister's boyfriend introduced me to Pet Sounds. And I thought, yeah, this is, you know, where has this been all my life, you know? And I remember my sister once said to me, I'm going into town. Do you want me to get a record, an album for you? I said, yeah, go to the, it was like we had a lot of places sold albums in those department stores, had a music department, didn't they? And I said, I think there's the Beach Boys section, there's Surfing USA, which I hadn't got. And this we're talking about now, about 68, yeah, because Friends was out. I said, and the Sgt. Pepper was out. So I said, go to the department store and get whichever one you think. Thinking, I hope she gets Surfing USA. She comes back with Sgt. Pepper. And of course, it was like, wow, yeah, this is pretty good stuff. This is amazing.
Didn't go too far wrong.
Yeah, the next week I went out and bought Surfing USA.
Okay.
So that was good. There was the original Friends there. I remember how I loved the album cover, how I thought how peaceful and lovely it was. And I didn't get it. I think I went back to get it some weeks later, it gone. And in those days, you didn't ask them to order another copy of something. You just, if it gone, it gone, you know. And I remember also buying Wild Honey and thinking how cool it was. How cool. Very short, but just, you know, R&B and beautiful piano, great vocals, just a knockout. I loved it so much. And I think 2020 came along, Sunflower, as I said, Surf's Up. I remember somebody, when I got Surf's Up, I lent them Surf's Up, one of the guys at school. And he was a Lindisfarne fan. You know, the fog on the Tyne is all mine, that type of thing. Fine, pretty good. He said, that Surf's Up. He said, you can hear them breathing. Said, yeah, you can, but that's great. Round the mic, taking in a breath. Wow. You know, so I was just... Surf's Up came on. I mean, we were just immersed in fantastic music, Steve, weren't we? Amazing. Yeah. But with me, I guess it happened in stages. So I was then always looking for the next album. And I think when I was at grammar school, then my first year at grammar school, I was in the city of Leicester, which is in the middle of the UK. We were now living in the southwest, but here we are in Spain at the moment. And I went to a music store, and sometimes they had those booths where you could play an album to see if you liked it or not. And Carl and the Passions had just come out. Oh. And I didn't know it was it was in the Beach Boys section, and I picked it up. I thought, oh, is this the Beach Boys? And then I opened it up. There's Brian, and these other guys. Anyway, put the album on, and you know, Mess of Help and Marcella and Cuddle Up. I thought, yeah, knockout again. And then at grammar school, I guess they were talking about, oh, that Holland. Have you heard that from the Beach Boys? I mean, we were flying. They were flying.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
fantastic, you know, and the fairy tale. I guess they didn't put that on the album. Well, they couldn't put it on a single album. It would have had to have been a double, I suppose, because it had been too long. But yeah, what a classic fairy tale is too. You know, Brian in Holland doing all that, and yeah, I thought it was sort of magnificent. But yeah, so that's my sort of little start. But carry on, Steve. I mean,
That's great. I envy the fact that you got to hear so much of this stuff as it came out. Because like I said, you know, the first Beach Boy album that I bought when it was released was Keeping the Summer Alive.
Okay, yeah, you sure?
Because I hadn't been that, you know, it wasn't until the beginning of 1980 that I really became that serious about it. Now, I'd heard Holland, I'd heard Beach Boys Love You.
Right.
But I wasn't familiar with the history and, you know, all that. So I kind of heard all that at once.
Yeah, that's a
and
really
then had to sort out how it all came together.
Yeah,
you know?
quite a jigsaw. You had it all massed together in a heap, didn't you? Really, quite a
right.
lot to process.
And certain things would really catch me, and other things would, you know, if you listen to Surf's Up, and then you need to cleanse your palate or something before you go to Wild Honey, or you'll miss it.
Sure.
You know, so there's been a lot of, you know, years of sort of separating those things out, and doing the channel has really helped me do that too.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
You know, to really sit down and listen to the, you know, I'm going to talk about this record. I better listen to it and research it and learn something about it.
Definitely. And I think it's excellent. And Noel Giggins, what a laugh he is. He's got a good channel, hasn't he?
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's great. And he's just so much fun. He's
yeah.
Excellent.
He seems like a pretty young guy still, though, I guess. I don't know, but I think no, I'm getting mixed up with David Beard now, because obviously you're an ESQ subscriber, aren't you? Of course.
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
Are you one of the VIPs?
No, I haven't done the VIP thing yet. So, but I am talking to David. I just talked to him. He's going to be on the channel a week from Thursday again.
Right.
So
oh, good. I love that. That was such a great session you guys had. Really, really good. And you know, with me, it's sort of been like my channel started only about just over a year ago, and then we've had some illness in Spain. So, you know, my wife went into hospital, and I was ill. So for a few months, I haven't done anything, and I've been meaning to interview various artists, and a couple of them just haven't come back to me. I even sent Van Dyke an email, actually, hoping
yeah,
he probably I don't know, but he hasn't come back so far. But you never know.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, I love learning and you know, about all the guys, and talking to people like you who are so knowledgeable, and you know, I just want to be part of the little community and add my bit if it helps anyone, and have a bit of fun, for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's been the great thing about it, you know, with Giggins and David Beard and yourself. I mean, we're all just a bunch of fans who just want to learn more and, you know, find out what else is out there. And you know, so you know, the community aspect of it has just been fantastic. And
yeah, right. And you learn more and more, don't you, about, like, you know, what Brian has actually done with other artists, and what some of the other guys have done, and, you know, learning about people like Charles Lloyd and I don't know, various other artists that then contributed to their albums. And, you know, it's just it's a gold mine, really. And David is a master of the gold mine as well. I mean, phenomenal.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We hope to be talking about a little time of the Beach Boys, when about 91, I think, when a new album was supposed to be coming, and things changed a little bit, and he and I hope to be talking a bit about that period of time at some point. Yeah, that's quite interesting, because other people were asked to get involved in production and it didn't happen, and so I think he's quite interested in that. I know a little bit about that, and so we're hoping to have that as a sort of session, but hopefully to bring the other guys who are involved in potentially producing the album, getting them to be interviewed as well. We're hoping to do that, but at the moment that's sort of like a little bit on hold. But that's a special sort of project, really. I think I'd call it.
Oh, that'd be, I'm looking forward to that. That should be
Yeah,
fantastic.
I know. And it wasn't an easy time for anyone, I don't think. And I think at that time, Brian was going one direction. Some of the band were recommending other people to try and take him in another direction. And there was a little bit of stuff going on. And, I think it was a learning curve for a lot of people. And Dave is interested in that very much. And I hope I can help with that, because there's a few people who really don't know a lot about it. And, we just have to see, really.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be great. Well, that there's so much history that really hasn't been that well documented.
Okay.
David Leaf kind of put together the bare bones of the story up to, maybe the early mid 80s. And since then, periods like that are so poorly documented and are really very interesting. So I'm looking forward to that.
And time is going, the thing is as well, Steve, time is moving on.
Yes.
I was hoping to talk to Al actually and have a little chat with him. So, I push my luck a little bit. I try and push my luck. And his agent has said, well, he's been touring. He's really pretty knackered at the moment, and hopefully he'll do something sometime. But if not, do an email. Send him an email, or the agent email with the questions, and he'll come back with Al's answer. So that's fine as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Because he just turns loads of people. He gets bombarded. I mean, he's such a great guy. And I think people say, oh, I'm sure well, he's like anyone. He just can't cope with doing that much.
Sure.
And so I'm just interested. I'm happy to fire half a dozen questions and see what happens. I mean, I've got a great friend in Madrid who's a wonderful fan of the band. I mean, she's a lot younger than me, but she knows all the music. She knows a lot of related music. She knows a lot of tropical music. I mean, she's Venezuelan, really, or Venezuelan Italian, but her knowledge of vintage vocal harmony music, Caribbean. I've learned a lot from her, and we sort of, and I've given her some things like with people like Louis Philippe, who is very much a Beach Boys fan, a Brian Wilson fan, who's a French guy. You might not have heard of him, but I was hoping to interview him. And he's done a lot of Brian Wilson influenced material, really some really nice things. And of course, the High Llamas, who you may know a little bit about or not, with Sean O'Hagan. I mean, very much Pet Sounds, Smile, Beach Boys influenced completely. Not so much today, but it's sort of the albums of the 90s and into the 2000s, loads of Beach Boys influences. Yeah. And one of my favorite bands as well, for sure. I don't know if you know much about them, but
I've heard them, and I really enjoy it.
One album I think Brian really liked was Hawaii by them. It's very long, lots of little segments, little snippets, bits and pieces. And I think Brian liked that album very much, actually. And it's interesting to find, I think Bruce said Brian loves that album. And, you get that snippet from somewhere. You find it. Yeah. Oh, did he like that? He did. And Bruce, I think Bruce actually was so helpful to the band, particularly later on as well, when they came back with Terry Melcher and they were doing quite a lot later on in the late 80s and things. I think the band could have gone even further at that point, actually. I don't know what your thoughts are with Terry and Bruce and Terry. I mean, phenomenal combination.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I agree. Yeah. It's interesting that that there wasn't an album to follow up Beach Boy 85, that they're, a Terry Melcher produced Beach Boy album, full on.
I know. The 85 album, I mean, you obviously love it, I guess, do you? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. I mean, there are when it came out, it felt too 80s. I mean, I was glad they were back. I love the single, and I guess this is still basically the case. I love the single, and I love the Carl tracks. Definitely. And and everything else to more or less. California Calling to me was too much of a throwback to earlier days. I prefer the more progressive stuff.
Okay.
And I didn't. The Passing Friend was the other track. That
that was for me. It went on far too long, and it wasn't the Beach Boys.
It wasn't the Beach Boys. Yeah.
No.
But But you know, there's a lot to recommend that album, and some of my favorite stuff is on there. What's the Stevie Wonder track?
Oh, oh,
I I do love you,
I do love
or
you. Yeah,
yeah,
good vocals, great.
that was on my mix at my wedding reception. So
Really? Oh, how about that? You know,
yeah.
it's amazing. We've been we quite like motorbikes, and we've been to a motorcycle meeting the last couple of days down the coast in down in our area, and they've been playing some Beach Boys. You know, typical biker rock music. But then all of a sudden, Why Did God Make the Radio come out? And then all of California
Really?
Girls. And then we had Surf Jam today from Surfing
Wow.
USA. Surf Jam, and I did a little video of me doing the drums and doing the lead guitar, and my wife videoed me. I might put it on Instagram or something.
But yeah. Oh wow, that's
I thought, great. Here that we are in Spain, and they've still got the Beach Boys, 60s, 2000s. Oh yeah,
yeah.
great. Because David Marks played here in Valencia a few years ago with his surf band, I think, didn't he? I think
Oh,
he did.
okay.
Played in Valencia. I've tried to track David down, and he's pretty difficult to contact, but you never know. You know, we live in
Yeah.
hope. We live in hope.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's worth reaching out. That's great.
There was I'm darting around a bit, Steve. There was talk of Brian doing a rock and roll album. I don't know whether that's dead in the water. Have you heard any news
It
about
seems like it seems like that's been talked about for a while and a while ago. Although I know in the new Endless Summer Quarterly, there's a quote from Al that they're working on a new Brian Wilson. He's working on a new Brian Wilson album.
Oh,
It's and I meant to ask David Beard about it because it's
wow.
phrased kind of seems strange to me that I'm currently working on one of Brian's new albums,
I don't think I
something
saw
like
that. I
yeah, I think
haven't.
it was in the fall 2023
Oh,
issue. And I saw another quote from one of the band members that they're working on, but it's phrased in a really kind of funny way,
okay.
like it's all very tentative, or that there I don't know. But there's apparently something in the works
Is that?
coming from Brian. Yeah, which
Wow.
I mean,
Well,
when I saw him last year in concert, he was basically present. You know, it was the band performed, he was on stage, he listened to the band
yep.
and paid attention basically to whoever was doing the lead vocal, but he didn't perform himself really. He did sing a little bit. He actually did pretty well on Be My Baby.
Did he? Oh
And
well, one of his yeah.
yeah, which I think I got the feeling he was interested in singing that one. The other ones he was not so interested in. So he kind of half-heartedly and had no interaction with the audience, but it was nice to see him there.
Sure.
And I really did. That's kind of what I expected. It would be a Brian Wilson band concert with Brian present, and that's what it was. Al was great. Al was there. He was fantastic. He's turned into a good front man, and
It hasn't he?
and his
Solid,
voice.
as solid can be. He really is. You know, with Carl
Yeah,
not with us anymore, Al is phenomenal. I think really good.
yeah.
Great singer. Still can sing well.
And it was my
Definitely.
first time seeing Blondie at that concert.
Yeah.
And man, that was great.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure to some people, his guitar solos were long and indulgent, but to me, man, I loved it.
I like that.
So,
I really do. It adds
yeah,
another dimension to the song, doesn't it? Very much so. You
yeah,
know? And
absolutely.
yeah, and I mean, when he was performing all that time, well, yeah, with Brian, I mean, he's done a great job for them, definitely. And yeah, did you ever see Brian perform Smile?
I did, yes. And he actually performed it at a little theater that's walking distance from my house.
Kidding me?
I called up, I called the friend who went with me to that 82 concert where we never thought we'd see Brian again.
Yeah.
I called him up and said, Brian Wilson is alive.
Incredible.
Brian Wilson is performing. Brian Wilson is performing Smile, and he's performing it walking distance from here. This is like fan fiction.
Yeah, you were in a dream somewhere. You must have been.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah. And it was, did you see it? You saw the
Yeah,
Smile
I
shows?
think we saw it three times in England.
Okay.
Doing Smile. Yeah, I mean, and I got backstage. I
Oh,
smuggled,
really?
I smuggled myself in. Yeah, I had the original Beach Boy, the Smile T-shirt with the album on, the old T-shirt, not the new one, the old one, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it got me in backstage. They stopped me.
Oh,
They said, "You no, 5 times no, you can't come in. No, 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 no." But I got in.
wow.
And yeah, who was it? Oh, flipping heck. Jeff Foskett. I said, fantastic. I gave him a good handshake. I said, your music's fantastic, healing music. He said, thanks, that's great. And I did the same with Brian. I hadn't got anything for him to sign. I wasn't really prepared. I didn't think I was going to get in. He could have signed a shirt, I suppose. God, anyway, didn't think about it. I was so awestruck, you know, bowled over. But I just gave him a handshake, and he just said, thank you. You know, I said, it's healed me. I said, it's wonderful, something like that. And that was it. You know, it was about 5 seconds. And then again at Lucky Old Sun. I think we saw Smile at, well, Albert Hall, and was it Albert Hall, wasn't it, Sue? Royal Albert Hall. Yes. Yeah. And I think he also at Portsmouth, I think, or twice in London, one in Portsmouth. That's right. And Lucky Old Sun, I think, was in Bournemouth on the south coast of England, and just said hi to him, and his wife was there, and I just said, and you know, the crazy thing was, Steve, it was so embarrassing. I called her by the wrong name, by his previous wife name, and I went, "Oh no!" When I was just walking away, and I thought, "Oh no!"
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, no, I think I was so sort of shocked that it's.
Oh yeah,
and you know, it just throws your brain a little bit. But have you met any of the members or any of the?
No, I have not. I'm trying to think if I've even seen any of them outside, because we lived in Los Angeles where you'd see a lot of people around.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think I've ever actually just seen, you know, like I saw Ringo in a car rental place once, and John Edwards from The Who nearly ran me over making Right on Red in Beverly Hills one day.
Never the Who.
He cut me out. Hey, you know, it's John Entwistle. All right.
John Entwistle.
I used to see people around, but I don't think I ever saw, you know, apart from in concert, you know, at concerts, I don't think I've ever seen. I've never met any of them.